Ethan Cole grew up on a small farm at the edge of Millbrook County. His hands were rough from years of pulling weeds, feeding animals, and fixing broken fences before the sun came up. His family did not have much money. Most nights, dinner was simple soup and bread, but it was made with love. His mother often told him, "We may be poor, but we are never small. Keep your head up, son." Ethan held on to those words like a shield. He was smart, though few people outside his town knew it. At night, after all his farm chores were done, he studied books he borrowed from the small library 2 towns away. He taught himself how numbers worked, how businesses grew, and how the world of trade moved. He had big dreams. He wanted to build something of his own one day, something that would make his parents proud and lift his family out of hard times. At 23, Ethan finally got the chance he had been waiting for. A large company in the city, Sterling Innovations, was holding open interviews for a junior business analyst position. It was a huge opportunity, the kind that farm boys like him rarely got. He saved money for months to buy a simple gray suit from a thrift store. It did not fit him perfectly, but it was the best he had. He ironed it 3 times the night before, making sure every wrinkle was gone. The morning of the interview, Ethan took the early bus into the city. He had never been somewhere so big and loud. Tall glass buildings reached into the sky, and people walked fast, always in a hurry, always looking important. He felt small, but he reminded himself of his mother's words. He was not small. He just came from a small place. When he arrived at the Sterling Innovations building, he was told to wait in a long line with other applicants. Most of them wore expensive suits and shiny shoes. Some carried leather bags that probably cost more than Ethan's family made in a month. He stood quietly, holding his resume in a plain folder, trying not to feel out of place. That was when he first saw her. Her name was Vivian Grant, and she was one of the interviewers that day. She was beautiful, sharp, and clearly used to power. She wore a tailored black dress and moved through the waiting room like she owned it. She was actually the daughter of the company's co-founder, though most applicants did not know this yet. She often sat in on early interviews just to have fun, as she called it, picking apart nervous candidates for her own amusement. When it was Ethan's turn, he walked into the interview room with his heart pounding. 2 interviewers sat at the table. One was an older man with kind eyes. The other was Vivian. She looked at his resume, then looked at him, then smiled in a way that was not friendly at all. "A farm boy," she said, loud enough for others waiting outside to hear through the thin walls. "I didn't know Sterling Innovations was hiring people straight out of the cornfields now." Ethan felt his face grow hot, but he stayed calm. "I grew up on a farm, yes. I worked hard there, and I believe hard work matters everywhere, including here." Vivian laughed, a short, sharp laugh. "Hard work? Sweetheart, this is a real company. We deal with millions of dollars, global markets, serious decisions. What could someone like you possibly understand about any of that?" She flipped through his resume again, barely looking at it. Homemade education, no real university, no connections. "Honestly, I don't know why they even let you through the door." The older interviewer tried to soften the moment, saying Ethan's test scores were impressive. But Vivian was not finished. She leaned back in her chair, looking at Ethan like he was something to be laughed at. "Let me guess, you probably thought putting on a suit would make you look like you belong here. Cute effort. But some things can't be dressed up." A few people near the door snickered, having heard everything. Ethan sat still. Inside, his heart was breaking a little, but his mother's voice echoed in his mind. "Never small." He looked directly at Vivian and said, in a steady voice, "You may laugh at where I come from, but you don't know where I'm going. One day, you might regret speaking to people this way." Vivian rolled her eyes. "Oh, is that a threat? How dramatic. You can go now. We'll call you if we ever get desperate." Ethan stood, thanked the older interviewer politely, and walked out with his back straight. Outside the room, he heard quiet laughter behind him. His cheeks burned with embarrassment, but he did not cry, and he did not run. He walked through the lobby, out the glass doors, and into the noisy city street, feeling like the whole world had just watched him get knocked down. But something inside him had also changed. Instead of feeling only shame, a quiet fire started burning in his chest. He thought about all the nights he studied while others slept. He thought about his family's small kitchen table and his mother's tired but hopeful eyes. He was not going to let one cruel woman define who he was. What Vivian did not know, what nobody in that room knew, was that Ethan had also applied, weeks earlier, for a very different opportunity. A small but fast-growing tech investment firm called Bright Path Ventures had been quietly reviewing his application for their new leadership training program, one built specifically to find talented people from ordinary backgrounds. Ethan had almost forgotten about it after months of silence. That same evening, tired and hurting, Ethan checked his email one more time before going to sleep in the cheap motel room he had rented for the night. There, sitting in his inbox, was a message from Bright Path Ventures. He sat up straight, opened it, and read the words slowly, his hands slightly shaking. They wanted him, not just for a job, for something much bigger. His phone buzzed again almost immediately. A private call from a company he did not recognize, someone wanting to schedule an urgent meeting for later that week. Ethan closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and allowed himself, for the first time that whole difficult day, to smile. He did not know yet exactly how things would unfold, but somewhere deep inside, he felt his life was about to change in a way Vivian Grant could never have imagined. The farm boy she had laughed at, the boy she called small, was about to walk into a future far bigger than she could picture. And in some strange twist of fate that neither of them could see coming yet, their paths were far from finished crossing. Ethan spent the next few days in something like a daze, but a good one. Bright Path Ventures had not just offered him a spot in their leadership training program. After a fast series of interviews, tests, and one very intense meeting with their board, they offered him a role that felt almost too big to believe. Junior partner in a new division they were building, one focused on identifying strong companies to invest in and help grow. He would be given real responsibility from day one, real power to make decisions, and a salary that would have seemed impossible to his family just a month earlier. Bright Path Ventures explained why they moved so fast. They had read about his self-taught business knowledge, his perfect scores on their entrance tests, and, most importantly, they liked how he handled pressure. One of the board members, an older woman named Diane Whitfield, told him directly, "We don't care where you came from. We care about how you think, how you treat people, and how you handle hard moments. You have all three." Ethan almost told her about the humiliating interview at Sterling Innovations, but he decided to stay quiet about it for now. There was no need to complain. He simply focused on preparing for his new role. Part of his early work involved reviewing potential business partnerships and investments for Bright Path Ventures. On his third day, his new manager handed him a folder and said, "We're looking into a possible deal with Sterling Innovations. They want new investors for an upcoming project. Look into it and give me your honest opinion by Friday." Ethan froze for a second when he heard the name. Sterling Innovations, the very company where Vivian Grant had humiliated him just 1 week earlier. He took the folder anyway, sat at his new desk, and began to read. The report on Sterling Innovations was full of business details, growth numbers, and staff introductions. Near the middle of the document, there was a small paragraph about company leadership, and there she was. Vivian Grant, listed as Director of Talent Acquisition, daughter of the company's co-founder. Her photo, confident smile, expensive jewelry, looked exactly like the woman who had laughed at him just days before. Ethan sat back in his chair, feeling many emotions at once. Anger, still a little embarrassment, but also something unexpected, calm control. He no longer felt small. He was reading her company's private financial documents, deciding whether his firm should invest money into her family's business. He did his research carefully and fairly. He was not the type to let personal feelings control his professional judgment. He found that Sterling Innovations had strong potential but weak internal management in a few key areas, especially around how they treated new talent and handled interviews. He wrote an honest, detailed report, noting both the strengths and the serious problems. On Thursday, Ethan's manager called an emergency meeting. "Sterling Innovations wants to speed things up," she said. "They're sending someone from their team today to discuss details in person, since our written questions raised some concerns. I need you to handle this meeting, Ethan. You know the report best." Ethan agreed calmly, though his heart beat a little faster. He had no idea who they would send. At exactly 2 in the afternoon, Ethan's assistant told him someone from Sterling Innovations had arrived and was waiting outside his office. He walked to the door, opened it, and stopped completely still. There stood Vivian Grant, dressed sharply as always, holding a folder against her chest. She looked up, ready to give her usual confident smile to whoever she was meeting, and then her face changed completely when she recognized him. "You," she said, her voice suddenly unsure. "You're the farm boy from the interview." Ethan kept his expression calm and professional. "Ethan Cole," he said simply. "Junior partner, Bright Path Ventures. Please, come in. We have a lot to discuss about your company's proposal." Vivian did not move for a moment, clearly trying to understand how this was possible. Slowly, she walked into his office and sat down across from his desk, her usual confidence completely gone. Ethan opened the folder in front of him, keeping his tone professional and steady. "Your company has strong products and smart long-term plans. But there are real concerns about internal culture, especially how your team treats new candidates during interviews. That kind of behavior creates legal risk and damages your public image. Investors care about that." Vivian's cheeks turned red. She clearly remembered exactly what she had said to him just 1 week ago. "Ethan, I didn't know you worked here. If you had known, would you have treated me differently?" Ethan asked, his voice calm but firm. "That's actually part of the problem. Good leadership treats everyone the same, whether they think someone is important or not." Vivian looked down at her hands, clearly embarrassed. For the first time since he had met her, she looked unsure of herself, almost human. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "What I said to you was cruel and unfair. I judged you before I even knew you. I'm sorry." Ethan studied her for a moment. He was not the kind of person to hold on to anger forever, but he also was not going to pretend the moment did not matter. "Apology accepted," he said honestly. "But this isn't about revenge, Vivian. This is business. My report will be based on facts, not feelings." Their meeting continued for almost an hour, professional and detailed. By the end, Vivian's attitude had changed completely. She listened carefully to his suggestions, took notes, and even thanked him twice for his honest feedback. As she stood to leave, she paused at the door. "For what it's worth," she said softly, "you handled that interview and this meeting better than I probably would have in your position." She walked out without another word, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. That night, Ethan called his mother to share the news about his new job and the surprising meeting with Vivian. His mother laughed warmly on the phone. "See, son, I told you. Never small." But the story was not quite finished yet. There would be one more chapter to this unexpected journey, one that neither Ethan nor Vivian could fully predict. Weeks passed after that tense meeting between Ethan and Vivian. Life at Bright Path Ventures moved fast, and Ethan quickly proved that he deserved every bit of trust the company had placed in him. His reports were sharp, his decisions were fair, and his co-workers respected him, not because of where he came from, but because of how he worked and treated people. The investment deal with Sterling Innovations moved forward slowly. Because of Ethan's honest report, Sterling Innovations was required to make real changes before Bright Path Ventures would agree to invest fully. They had to improve how they trained staff, especially those involved in hiring. New rules were created around respectful interviews, and mandatory training sessions were scheduled for all managers and directors, including Vivian. At first, Vivian resisted the idea of sitting through basic training about respect and communication. She was, after all, the co-founder's daughter, someone who had rarely been told what to do inside her own family's company. But after her father heard the full story, including small details that slipped out through office gossip about the farm boy interview, he was deeply disappointed in his daughter's behavior. He personally insisted she complete every session, without any special treatment. During one of these training sessions, something unexpected happened. Vivian was paired with a nervous young intern for a mock interview exercise, someone from a small town, much like Ethan had been. As she watched the young woman's hands shake and heard the fear in her voice, memories of her own harsh words to Ethan came rushing back. For the first time, she truly understood how much damage careless cruelty could cause. After the session ended, Vivian sat alone in an empty conference room, thinking deeply about the kind of person she wanted to be. She thought about her comfortable life, her expensive education, and how easy it had been to look down on someone who had none of those advantages. She realized that true strength was not about mocking people who had less. It was about lifting others up, especially those working hard to build something from nothing. Meanwhile, Ethan's career at Bright Path Ventures continued to grow. 6 months after that first difficult interview, he was promoted again, this time to lead investor relations for several new business partnerships. His success did not go unnoticed, and soon, business magazines began writing small articles about the self-taught farm boy turned investment expert. Ethan never sought this attention. He simply focused on doing good, honest work. One afternoon, Ethan received an unexpected message. Vivian wanted to meet him again, this time not for business, but to talk personally. Curious, he agreed. They met at a quiet coffee shop near his office. Vivian arrived first, looking noticeably different from the confident, sharp-tongued woman he first met. She seemed calmer, more thoughtful. "I wanted to properly apologize," she said as soon as he sat down. "Not just as a business formality, but as a person. What I said to you that day was wrong. I judged you because of where you came from, without knowing anything real about you. I've thought about it a lot since then." Ethan nodded, listening carefully. "I appreciate that," he said honestly. It wasn't easy hearing those words, especially in front of other people. "But I also believe people can change, if they truly want to." Vivian smiled slightly, some of her old confidence slowly returning, but softer now, more genuine. "I've actually started a new program at Sterling Innovations," she explained. "It's designed to give opportunities to people from small towns and difficult backgrounds, people like you were, back then. I want to make sure no one else feels the way you did that day." Ethan felt a quiet sense of satisfaction hearing this. Not because he wanted revenge, but because real change, real growth, mattered more to him than anything else. "That's a good thing to do," he said sincerely. "I'm glad something meaningful came out of all of this." They talked a little longer, no longer as former rivals, but almost like two people who had learned important lessons from each other. Before leaving, Vivian said one more thing. "You know, if you ever want to speak to the new interns in my program, share your story, I think it would mean a lot to them." Ethan considered this for a moment, then nodded. "I'd like that." Months later, Ethan stood in front of a small group of nervous young interns and applicants at Sterling Innovations, sharing his own story honestly, including the painful interview that had once broken his confidence. He told them about growing up on a farm, studying by candlelight, and facing harsh judgment because of where he came from. He told them that failure and humiliation did not define a person's worth, hard work and persistence did. As he spoke, he noticed Vivian standing quietly near the back of the room, listening carefully, nodding along with his words. After his talk ended, she approached him. "Thank you for doing this," she said. "You didn't have to." "I know," Ethan replied simply. "But I remember how it felt to be looked down on. If sharing my story helps even one person feel less alone, it's worth it." As Ethan left the building that evening, walking through the same lobby where he had once been humiliated, he felt a deep sense of peace. He was not the same nervous farm boy who had walked in wearing a poorly fitted suit months earlier. He had grown, not just in his career, but as a person. Vivian, too, had changed. She was no longer someone who mocked people for their background. Instead, she had become someone who worked hard to create opportunities for those who needed them most. In the end, their story was not really about revenge or humiliation. It was about how a single moment of cruelty could either destroy someone or push them toward becoming stronger, wiser, and kinder. Ethan Cole never forgot where he came from, and because of that, he never let success make him cruel toward others. And somewhere in that quiet office building, two very different people, once divided by judgment and pride, had both found a better version of themselves.